Hello, welcome to the Inside the Birds pregame show. I'm Geoff Mosher with Adam Caplan, and of course, we got Greg Cosell to help us break down the tape of this clash of undefeateds right now. You've got the 3-0 Philadelphia Eagles versus the 3-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a place that has been a pirate ship of fools for the Philadelphia Eagles, Raymond James Stadium, where they have a difficult time winning. And overall, they have lost 6 of their last 7 to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, guys, some would argue that neither of these teams deserves to be 3-0, but they are, and they've pulled out some wild ones. The Bucks, first team, I believe, since the merger to win all 3 of their first 3 games in the last possession in under the final minute of a game. And of course, Eagles blocking a field goal against the Rams and returning it for a touchdown to keep their record unbeaten. So we got a wild one, and Adam, we got a hot one because our buddy John Clark, remember how I said on the podcast that it's not always just the temperature in the feels like, but then the field temperature adds an extra. Well, our buddy Johnny Clark at NBC Sports Philly reported that it was supposed to be 103 field temperature by kickoff. So
I'll do him one better. I've known John probably longer than anyone in the media has. I've known John since the mid-90s when he owned the Wrestling Flyer newsletter.
Nice.
So right now it's expected to be 90 degrees at kickoff. So that's 2 weeks in a row the Eagles are playing 90-degree temperatures. So it's not like they don't know this.
Right.
So
what's
at 1 o'clock,
like?
I'm getting right to it. The humidity is still only 60%, but it feels like 97. Now, on your point, though, that's just in Tampa, 97 degrees. Mm-hmm. Off the grass, it's going to be much warmer. So it's going to be tough, but there's a difference here. The Eagles will have better reinforcements in terms of depth. Quality depth is always a challenge, but they're going to have players. They're going to have A.J. Brown. They're going to have Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson.
Yeah, they will. And both of these teams are banged up. Both have some injuries. We'll get into that. We'll get into the new look for the Bucs a little bit, not winning games the same way they did last year. And, of course, the Eagles are a little bit new look themselves as they are finding different ways to win games. So it's a really interesting battle, right, Greg, between two teams that aren't exactly playing the way they did the year before, but still finding ways to win games.
Yeah, those are always tough things to figure out, when people say, and like the Eagles, with what happened last week, that they find ways to win. I never quite know how to respond to that. I mean, obviously you are what your record is. They're two good teams. I think that they've shown that they can win in different ways. And I think that to me, that's more the sign of good teams that show that they can win in different ways.
Absolutely.
Because if you can only win one way, and we've seen that through the years, you can go back 30, 40 years. I mean, with a lot of teams that had one thing that was great, but if that got taken away, it seemed as if their team got shut down. Right. And I think you're dealing with two teams, certainly the Eagles for sure. I mean, they're Super Bowl champions. Certainly the Eagles can win multiple ways. And the Bucs are, very quietly, the Bucs have been a really good team the last couple of years, just because they haven't necessarily gotten to a championship game or a Super Bowl. And I guess for people who look at that as the definition of a good team, but they're a really solid football team on both sides of the ball.
Hey, you know that one guy in the group chat who hit a 5-leg parlay week 1 and he wouldn't shut up about it for the rest of the season? Sounds like Caplan, right? Yeah, it could be him. It could be you. And we would all want to be you. MyBookie makes it stupid easy to get in on the action, whether it's college ball, NFL, super contest, and survivor pools, all the spreads, player props, and in-game lines that you could want all under one roof. What more could you want than that? If you're new to MyBookie, use our code, THEBIRDS. THEBIRDS, the birds. Use the code, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. There is no better time to jump in right now. No better place to play. Football is back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. Right. And we know that their history is the way they play defense gives the Eagles a lot of trouble. However, we also know the Eagles have been missing A.J. Brown in a lot of those losses. That won't be the case on Sunday, but both teams do have some major injuries. Let's start with the Bucs injuries, Adam, because Mike Evans is out with a hamstring.
Yeah.
I think you had a note in our podcast that this has bothered him nearly every single year of his career at some point.
Yeah, you could go back to 2014. He's had chronic hamstring problems. Now, more often than not that he plays, but if you watch the video, he grabs his hamstring and you could see he knew it was not going to be good. Now, the MRI showed, as I understand it, a grade 1 plus hamstring strain. Could be 2 to 4 weeks. Just depends. He knows his body. He's an older player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer someday. But this does help the Eagles. I mean, we'll get into the matchup later. This certainly will be interesting, Greg, as I sent it to you. I would think, Greg, don't know for sure, but Ibuka would make more sense to me than Godwin, who they expect to play that X position.
Yeah, I mean, they're limited. We don't even know if Godwin's going to play, right?
He should. So, he took the ones on Friday. He should, barring something happening in pregame. But, Greg, here's the issue. Playing is one thing. How many snaps could he have? He hasn't played since October 22nd last year.
I know. I would think – and by the way, you can change your offense around so that there's not many snaps of a true X. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things you can do in terms of formations, in terms of motions, pre-snap movement. If they do line up in a 3-by-1 set, it could be either guy. I mean, they're not going to have a defined X receiver, and I wouldn't be surprised if formationally and movement-wise, they're not lining up in a static 3-by-1 very often.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I had the same thought as you, Greg. Strategically, I think they may want to avoid that, and we'll talk about that when we get into the matchup. As far as other injuries, like you said, Adam, Chris Godwin, wide receiver, has not played yet this year. He is expected to play. We'll see how many snaps he can play, especially with the heat being what it is and what his conditioning is like. Also out is the defensive back. I believe he's kind of a hybrid. Christian Izien. Greg, he's sort of a guy,
but he hasn't played. He hasn't played, so they're not. He's not someone that they've quote unquote missed this season because he hasn't played.
All right,
he's been hurt too. He's actually been hurt all season, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's weird because he had a full. No, that was Godwin who had a full practice. Anyway, also questionable. Logan Hall, a good defensive lineman for them.
Yeah,
Baker Mayfield. Right biceps, right throwing biceps.
Yeah, but Adam, do you know anything about that? What's going on?
Yeah,
with that?
So basically, they made a decision. He was barely going to work this week. A lot of mental reps. Now on Friday, he took a little bit of work. So it's by the way, it's his throwing arm. It's his right biceps.
Yeah.
And Greg, one of the things I admire about Mayfield sometimes is to his detriment. Yes, you love that he hangs in the pocket, hangs, and he will scramble when he needs to. But he's on the injury report a lot, but almost certainly plays. He always seems to play. But he's been hurt a lot in his career, unfortunately.
Well, he's also this year, he's been running more this year as far as scrambles. And, he's obviously a tough guy and obviously well respected by teammates, but he certainly has taken more hits through 3 games this year than he probably has in any season. And he's not a big man. Right. I mean, that's the thing. So, again, it's a bicep on his throwing arm. Again, I'm not a doctor, and it's Friday. We're doing this on a Friday afternoon, so I don't know what the status will be. But
they expect him to play. Oh yeah,
they do.
Expect him to
okay.
Line. Oh yeah.
But he was limited each day of practice, so I do think that shows you that they're being very careful with him.
Now, if something happens, it would be that man, Teddy Bridgewater.
I know, isn't that crazy?
He was coaching high school football last year. Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right. The big news for the Bucs is their offensive line, which has just been in shambles since the start of the year. Tristan Wirfs, their all-pro left tackle. He was a full participant in practice on Friday. He's listed as questionable. Looks like he's going to play. The question is, how will his conditioning be? How well will he be played? It'll be his first game of the year. What was it that he had? Knee surgery, I believe, Adam?
He had a knee issue. Unfortunately, he had surgery in the offseason. It didn't fix the problem. And then they kept him out for a couple months. And he said this week to the media, he said it's the best he's felt. He feels normal. So, but yeah, he's back at left tackle. But man, Jeff, they have so many changes. It's kind of tough, I guess. And what they'll do now, him coming back, how one thing affects another. Wirfs will be at left. Graham Barton, who was a left tackle at Duke. He played left tackle for Wirfs. He's back at center. Now, Bredesen, I'm told, his natural position is really guard, not center. He could play center. This helps Bredesen. So this, Jeff, this does help their offensive line. But the right side, That's another story.
So it's a best case scenario for the Bucs when Wirfs plays because center, left guard, left tackle are all the same. But as we detailed leading up to this, they are without their right tackle. I'll say Luke, and Adam, you say his last name.
Gadecki. Some call him Gedecki, but I heard it was Gadecki. Maybe we could call Luke, but he won't be available. He's on injured reserve with a foot injury. So Charlie Andy Heck's son would be back at right tackle. Greg, I don't know if you've seen tape of Elijah Klein, but he's starting at right guard. Oh, okay. Really? That tells you a lot, Jeff.
Guess what? Greg will definitely be watching the tape of Elijah Klein at right guard for Inside the Tape next week. So that'll be
right.
First foray into Elijah Klein.
Yep. Don't know anything about Elijah Klein.
There you go. Levante David, the great linebacker. He was a full participant Thursday. He did not practice Friday, but he doesn't carry an injury designation. So it sounds like they were just resting him Friday, so he'd be good to go in this game. And the last guy we have to mention who will not play because he's on IR, just like Luke Gadecki, is their interior defensive lineman, good pass rusher, Kalijah Kancey, who always seems to be injured when the Eagles and the Bucs play, but he's on IR.
Yeah, he is. And what they'll do is, that does affect their front. They have the great Vita Vea. They're optimistic on Logan Hall. Greg Gaines has been around a while. And the other thing is, he would have been probably, I don't know how much he'd play, but Jalen McMillan's a guy they really liked, the third-year receiver out of, was it UW, I think?
Yes, Washington. Yep.
I really like Jalen McMillan, too. I was sorry that he went on IR.
Yeah,
so he would have probably been their third receiver this week. So the immortal Ryan Miller, an undrafted free agent who technically started last week, this was the first play of the game, he's number 81. So he'll dress for sure. And then, of course, they have Jeff, as we send it back to you, Sterling Shepard, who was not retired despite all the injuries. Good for him.
Yeah, and you know what? He still produces for them.
Well, he had a few big catches against the Eagles last year, and everybody was surprised. I think McMillan would have been a natural X if he were able to healthy and play in absence of Evans. But
well, you know what's interesting, and just a very quick story. So I did both Adunze and McMillan. They both came from Washington after their next to last years in college. I do that a lot to get ahead. I do, 120 guys who are going to go back to college and then be in the draft the next year. So when I watched McMillan and Adunze after their next to last seasons, I liked McMillan better on tape. And I thought the way people spoke about Adunze, so I thought to myself, okay, maybe I'm missing something. And then I got an opportunity to speak to a GM this summer, and we just got into this conversation about players. When you talk those conversations, you guys have them. Sometimes you just go off on tangents. And he said the exact same thing to me, that he liked McMillan better after that year as well.
Wow.
So, again, who knows what McMillan's career is going to be, but, I think I really liked him as a receiver.
Well, he did have 8 touchdown catches last year, which is a really nice rookie year. Wow. Yeah, he was a pretty good player for them.
Yeah.
And, it's unfortunate for them to have him and Mike Evans out. Let's get to the Eagles injury situation because the injury report is misleading. The injury report tells you everybody's good to go except for Adoree Jackson, who we knew was dealing with the groin injury. He is doubtful to play. If he doesn't play, Keely Ringo, he won't play. Keely Ringo will be the starter. And it's misleading because it doesn't mention the guys who are on IR, of which 3 went on that list throughout the week. So there will be no Nolan Smith. And the reason why Keely Ringo is playing is Jacorian Bennett, also with a pec injury, went on injured reserve as well. So, but the good news is Lane Johnson will play at right tackle, and Will Shipley, good to go. Good to resume.
Did you say there were 3 guys who went on IR this week? Who was the third?
The third was, why is it escaping me right now? Who's the third guy? It was Bennett, it was Nolan Smith, and it was come on, somebody help me out.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Why am I just blanking all of this? Oh, Darius Cooper, the wide receiver.
Who had the shoulder injury. That's a shame because he's done a nice job. And remember now, Johnny Wilson on IR, Darius Cooper on IR. So these are 2 guys who could have as backup players. Wilson in the run game, Jeff. Wilson in the run game.
Gotten a few snaps.
Good. What's
He's
that?
Gotten a few snaps in the first 3 games.
Yes, they've been playing him in Cooper, and sort of using him blocking a little bit. He's a strong guy. You mentioned it, Greg. You said that his body type reminded you a little bit of AJ Brown, and they were certainly not afraid to put him on the field in short yardage situations. So also good news, Tanner McKee, I believe at his first full practice on Friday of the year, and should be the backup quarterback now, number 2.
Yeah, he has no game status designation. Yeah, so with the right thumb. So yeah, he took his number off Friday. So Jackson's not expected to play. Man, with Bennett on IR, Jackson not expected to play. It's Ringo time, and we'll see after that. And then Mac McWilliams, who we've always liked, guys, he should be active for this game.
Mac McWilliams, that's right. That's right. He will be active. Or he should be, and we'll see if he gets any run as well. And we'll see if Xavier Gibson, the new acquisition throughout the week, who is a punt returner / wide receiver, will get any run after that disaster that the Eagles had last week with the kickoffs. So we'll see. All right, so let's get into this matchup. Let's talk about this Eagles offense, which really came alive against the Rams in the second half, against this Bucs defense, which Greg has struggled in the past, but seems to, and I know they haven't played a bunch of great offenses this year, but they have not, I don't think they've allowed more than 21 points in a game so far in their first 3 games. What are you noticing about what they're doing defensively?
Well, I think the starting point is, can the Eagles run the football, which they've not been able to do with any kind of sustaining consistency through 3 games. In doing research this week, and obviously I watched the tape, but then certain things strike me. I always start with the tape. I don't start with statistics. But very often when I'm watching the tape, guys, I see something and I think, okay, do the statistics validate it? And then I go to the statistics. And one thing that it struck me all through 3 games is that Saquon Barkley has not had a lot of room. Now, some of it is on him, I believe, watching the tape. Because don't forget, until last year, Barkley was not necessarily a truly sustaining runner in this league. And last year he proved to be, and one of the reasons why he had a phenomenal season. But so I went back and looked, and there's a stat that is on a website that we use about yards before first contact.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, Barkley's average led the NFL at more than 4 yards before first contact. So that means he was getting to the second level before first contact. And that makes him really hard to tackle. This year, that number is around 2, which means he's not getting past the first level before he's contacted. And so what often happens with Barkley, and this was the case with the Giants for years behind not a great O-line, obviously, with the Giants. And one could argue maybe one of the worst 5 in the league for a number of years with the Giants, is he starts to search and grope and look. And when he doesn't feel comfortable with the offensive line in front of him, that's what he starts to do. Mm-hmm. And he's not doing that to the degree he did with the Giants, but I've noticed it a few times. And, so what happens is that instead of just hitting it up in there and getting the 3 or 4 that are important, because, hard-earned yards are hard-earned yards and they matter. So with the way the offensive line is playing now, unless they start playing better, he's got to become much more of a grind it out, get what's there, try to keep them on as much schedule as possible, because we know how difficult the Eagles are to defend when it's 3rd and 6 and 4th and 2 and 4th and 3. So you just have to make sure you get those yards.
Confirmation bias is a heck of a thing, because this was an observation I said on the post-game show with Adam. I said, you never know if a running back is pressing, but I said I started to feel like Saquon was looking around at the hole and sort of maneuvering, not crazy side to side, but like you just said, Greg, he looked a little frustrated / reluctant at sometimes to just hit it and go, because it may not have been there. And you can tell he's waiting for that big space to open up.
I remember beginning last season, and it was it week 3? Was the Saints game week 3 last year?
I think it was, yeah.
Yes.
When he had that, when the offense wasn't really doing much, and even Barkley wasn't great in the first couple of games, and all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, in a game that was anybody's game and it was low scoring, he hit that 65-yard touchdown.
Correct, 100%.
No one touched him. I mean, it was just one of those it was a really well-designed play, because I remember it distinctly. It's funny how that popped into my head, because they also had a tunnel screen element to it, and that expanded the second level defenders, and he just ran through a hole at 100 miles an hour. And from that moment on, it seemed as if every game there were a couple of runs like that, where it just seemed like you hit it and there was no one there. And I'm not, look, I don't know if that'll happen this Sunday. If it does, that would be great. But, when that doesn't happen, you still have to run. You still have to, run and get what you can.
Does this speak to, you think, to the Eagles' offensive line? We've talked about Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens just don't look as dominant. And then now you have a new right guard who's good, but he's not a massive human. There were times Becton was just blocked by being massive.
No question. And I think Steen's done a relatively good job. I don't think he's been, oh my God, Steen, you're struggling. I think, again, without charting every play, and I'm certainly not their offensive line coaches, Stoutland and the assistant.
You're not a guru.
Right. I'm not. But to my just watching the tape, I feel like Jurgens and Dickerson have not played quite as well as they did a year ago. And, and we'll see. I mean, look, the Bucs, Cansey, he was a super explosive guy, not necessarily a dominant run defender. Logan Hall is a big man. And we'll see. And he's part of that rotation, a meaningful part of that rotation. And if he can't go, that would impact their depth significantly. So, obviously Vita Vea he's just a man and a half. But, but Greg Gaines has played a lot of football in this league. The question is number of snaps, because, are Vita Vea and Greg Gaines going to play every single snap? Not likely. So, that becomes the issue. Those guys are really good players. Vita Vea is a star. Gaines is just a solid pro. They're both really good run defenders. It just becomes depth and the number of snaps.
How about let's talk about the Bucs defensively and what they do. Obviously, with the Eagles now struggling a little bit on the offensive line, the Bucs, Greg, are, again, as they always are under Todd Bowles, they are right up there in the top 5 of the league in blitz percentage, up around 35%. And they are known, Todd Bowles is known for just sending guys from second level, third level, wherever. So what are you seeing over the first 3 weeks? They've been able to hold guys.
That's what they do as well as any team in the league, and they're either second or third in terms of using defensive backs as blitzers. That's the Chiefs are great at that. Obviously, the Bucs are right there with them. They do that as well as anybody. I think Winfield and now the rookie from Kansas State, the slot corner, a player I really liked coming out. He played predominantly on the outside in college, but he's their slot corner, Jacob Parrish, who's had a really good 3 games. They're among the most deployed defensive back blitzers in the league through 3 games. We know about Winfield. He's been doing it for years, but Parrish is now part of that. That's what you really have to be careful of if you get into these passing situations, which you will, of course. And, those 2 guys are meaningful parts of their pressure packages. And, for offensive linemen, their worldview is not necessarily that expansive, but you have to try to be more so when you play the Bucs.
Greg, one thing I want to ask you, Philadelphia's Tyke Smith, I think he played some nickel last year. How's he looking?
Now he's a safety.
Yeah, how does he look to you?
He's been solid, and I didn't think he was a slot corner coming out of Georgia, and he played some of that last year. Izzy played more of it when he was healthy. So I think Smith is best served being a safety, and I think they probably realize that, and that's why he's a safety. And that's why Jacob Parrish is the slot corner. But Smith is one of those guys who does not have, outstanding athletic measurables, but he's a good player, and that's, we know how important that is.
One more thing I want to ask you real quick. Benjamin Morrison's over his knee injury. I know he's starting to play a little bit. How did you see him coming out of school? How did you see him at this level?
Yeah, I feel like making a joke like from the movie Airplane. How did you see him with my eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but, you do have too, but you're wearing glasses.
Right. I liked Morrison. Now, Morrison, did he got hurt at Notre Dame his last
season? He had, I think, ACL.
Yeah, but the thing with Morrison is I really liked his tape. I thought that he was a little light. He was not short, but he was light. I could pull up my evaluation, of Morrison, but I remember definitely liking him. So he came out this year, right?
Yeah, he had a hip. Yeah, it was hip, not knee. It was hip. Yes.
Right. He's a rookie. So I'm just
second
going
round
up because I did him. I thought his 23 tape was really, really good. Like I thought it showed a high-level corner prospect. I thought he had length. He had smooth, fluid movement. This was his 2023 tape. Now, I think his 24 tape showed much of the same. He was a very effortless mover. I thought he was really good in mirror match press man coverage. He was patient. He was poised. I thought, now that I'm looking at my notes again, because, again, I did this a long time ago, so I couldn't remember exactly. To me, I thought he profiled as a guy that could play zone. He could play man. I thought he could play in the slot if needed. Obviously, on the Bucs, that's not the way he'd be deployed. I thought he was a really good prospect, actually, now that I'm looking at my notes.
Jeff, I would tell you this: the big issue for the Bucs is they had a number of Jamel Dean had all sorts of injury problems last year. They were really weak at backup corner. You put this kid who's over 6 feet, and as Greg said, he's a lady, he's under 200 pounds. But the fact that the Bucs drafted him in the second round, coming off of a major hip injury, tells you that the guy's really talented, and they needed depth. Now, what's going to be interesting, Jeff, is do the Eagles spread them out? They're healthy now at receiver.
I think they drafted him, just to jump in if I could, because of
sure.
Dean. Dean seems to get hurt every season.
Right.
And they just paid McCollum. So, and they don't change sides. Dean is the right corner and McCollum is the left corner. The only time they'll switch is if they're playing true man coverage and maybe one side is closed with only tight ends and there's twins to the other side and they're playing true man coverage. But pretty much 95% of the snaps, Dean is the right corner and McCollum is the left corner.
Okay.
Greg, to your point, there are 7 different Bucs that have at least one sack, and 4 of them come from our second level defenders. Jacob Parrish has one, Antoine Winfield has one, Tyke Smith has one, and Levante David, who I don't think lines up on the ball, right? His 1.5 come from probably Sims or.
Well, it's funny. He had a half a sack against the Texans on a specific pressure concept where it was a double mug front, which means both linebackers are lined up in the A gaps. So technically on that play, he's on the ball, but no, he does not normally line up on the ball.
Right. So there are a lot of second level guys coming at you. I would say this is what looks like a pretty good secondary when healthy, and they have two they have a good safety in Antoine Winfield. The Eagles like to hit the seams when they can. You saw them do that last week in the second half. Are the Bucs a difficult team to get those 20 to 30 yard passes off against? Do they play zone behind those blitzes, or do they usually?
Yeah, normally they're not a high percentage. In fact, I think they're a pretty low percentage man, cover one defense. They don't normally play a lot of man coverage. I mean, that's not their deal. In fact, they're in the bottom 10 in the league in playing man coverage, and that's normally the way they are every single season. So they're not one of those teams that lines up and plays man. Now they play a lot more zone than they do man. So yeah, they tend to play zone behind it. Yes.
Right. Okay. I mean, the Bucs are an interesting team. I feel like they're one of the few teams that has been able to get Jalen stuck in the pocket where he has to hold the ball. He doesn't even find a running lane, and he holds onto the ball and he takes sacks because of it.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to answer as to why, because you'd almost have to, and I'm being honest, almost have to be in Jalen's head. But you're right. It does not seem the Bucs have had good defensive success against the Eagles offense and for the last number of years, and I mean, they're a difficult defense to play against because they do bring pressure from multiple spots. And, one of the things, the good pressure teams, and Bowles is really good at this, show pressure from one side, know how you then have to protect because you have to account for the look, and then they bring pressure from the other side, which then becomes the weakness of the protection. So Todd Bowles is a master at that.
How many times, Adam, do you think he's been sacked in 4 games against the Bucs?
Hurts?
Yeah.
4 games?
Yeah.
I'd say 17 or 18.
I was going to say 20.
Oh, that's really high. No, it's actually 11, which is really high because only 4 games.
But it seems like he's been under pressure a lot.
Yeah, you're talking 3 times. But no, that was it. I was going to say the pressure rate. It's funny Greg said it because I was going to say the pressure rate must be high. But again, A.J. Brown back in here, Devontae Smith back in here. That changes it. and I'm really interested to see what their approach is with Goddard back. It gets Calcaterra off the field more, which is probably a good thing. They did add Cam Latu off their practice squad. They actually signed him off there. Does Cam Latu now play more in 12 personnel? That's something we could see on Sunday.
Absolutely. And I know this will be a litmus test game to see if the Eagles feel like getting those bodies off Saquon and opening up the offense for him means that they come out passing the ball, trying to get some early completions against this blitz, and then go no huddle to slow the Bucs down if they can, and just get themselves a rhythm.
Well, I'll tell you what, at some point, you just have to believe. And again, maybe the second half last week was the impetus for some point, and particularly with the weather being what it's supposed to be. At some point, you think, do you come out, you try to hit AJ outside the numbers, you go no huddle, you get that Bucs defense, people can say things like, well, they're used to it. Well, when it's 95 or 105, whatever it's supposed to be on the field, not a lot of people are used to it. Just like I love when people, when people say, well, it's 25 below, they're used to it. Well, they're really used to that,
Yeah. The Packers never get cold. They're just used to it.
Right. So who knows? Maybe this is the week they try to do, what we saw them do much more of a season ago. Maybe after what they did in the second half, when there's a lot of talk about being aggressive, and maybe they feel that they sort of opened up the jar now, and let's kind of do that. Let's see how it goes.
Greg, those numbers, I don't know if you have them handy, but you had those numbers for us with our maybe the Patreon group on Tuesday. Hurts was incredible at no huddle, like going tempo.
Oh yeah, the numbers were phenomenal. Yeah, I don't have them right in front of me now, but I can easily, I can get them if you want them. But
no, that's fine. But go ahead.
Last year was a meaningful part of their offense. They would go no huddle, and of course you do it selectively. No one's going no huddle 80% of the snaps, but you do it selectively. Last year, I remember doing a piece in the matchup show where they went no huddle 4 or 5 plays in a row that ended with a Goddard touchdown. I forget who that was against, and it just works. And particularly, like I said, if Logan Hall, let's say, can't go, just throwing that out. We don't know, right? I mean, he may or may not.
Yes.
If he can't go and they're really down on depth on the defensive tackle position, okay, I think that would be a good way to go. To just, make them have to stay with, Gaines and Vita Vea. As good as Vita Vea is, he's not a 65 snap a game guy.
Right. I think it was the Steelers game you're referring to, and then they went no huddle a couple of times in a row, and then they got a nice little zone read with an RPO tag touchdown to Dallas Goedert, where he started off in line, then went around and was wide open.
It was on the left side of the field.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
He started on the right, came over, faked handoff. He was there, and then Hurts just bottom with it, and then he was like,
it was a 3-yard throw, but he then
right.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it was the Steelers game. I think you might be right, because I think it was Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I could see in my mind's eye right now.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we'll see if this Eagles offense makes some adjustments, comes out, does anything different against a Bucs defense that has played pretty good for the first 3 games of the year.
The bottom line point before we move on, it's just they are a tough defense to play against. Now, that doesn't mean they don't give up plays or you can't, move the ball, but they can confuse you and make it difficult for you at times. No question.
Yeah. I mean, they come at you you have to account for somebody. I mean, you always have to, but like if you're facing a 4-3 kind of static type defense versus every snap, your center is looking around and they're trying to call out the protection.
Well, that's why you're seeing so many more teams, just to make a general point in the league, because I watch as much tape as I can every week. You're seeing so many more teams line up with either 5-man fronts, 6-man fronts, 7-man fronts. Now, we know that doesn't mean everybody comes. We know that. But as an offense, you can't guess and say, well, I don't think he's going to come. You can't do that. You've got to account for people.
Right. Yeah, so, I did a story, Greg, for Philly Voice this week, just talking about how blitzing already seems to be up in the league-wide. There are, I believe, 6 or 7 teams blitzing at a 35% rate or higher. And last year, at the end of the year, there were only 3.
Right.
So it's not just the same 3 guys anymore, like Flores and Bowles and Vance Joseph. You're getting Spags is in there, and other teams are starting to do it as well. And even Vic is up from 19% at the end of last year to, I believe, his number is 28%, which is a pretty big. That's a big.
No.
Difference.
I mean, look, people realize you got to impact the quarterback. If you can, I think it's all cyclical. even with the quick game stuff, and you still have to impact the quarterback somehow. You know, you can't just let quarterbacks be comfortable.
100%. All right, let's get into this Eagles defense against the Tampa Bay offense. First, we'll pause real quick. The hero word from our great sponsors. Sports are all about competition. Every snap, every possession, every clutch moment matters. That same energy is what 1v1 Me brings to video games. Every single day, you can watch and stake on matchups in Madden, NBA 2K, FC, and Call of Duty Search and Destroy. All the games are streamed live. Every match has refs, and payouts are instant. And these aren't just random online lobbies. These are the best players in the scene, pros, streamers, and rivals. With season playoffs and the championship game on the line, every game matters. Over $100 million has already been paid out on the app, and the community is growing fast. If you're a sports fan, a gamer, or just someone who loves having a little extra on the line, 1v1 Me is where you need to be. It's not just about winning, it's about the bragging rights too. Every match has a chat going crazy, and you can back your picks in real time. Download today and use code BIRDS. Your first stake on the app is risk-free. That's code BIRDS for a risk-free first stake. Hey, fall is planting season. Did you know that many plants and trees actually do better when planted this time of the year? But you got to know where to start, and that's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter if you live in the sunny south or if the air's getting a little chilly where you are, the plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. They've got everything your yard needs: fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, flowering trees, so much more. And Fast Growing Trees makes it so easy for you to have your dream yard because you can order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door. If you're like me, you're tired of spending way too much money on landscaping. And if you walk into one of those nurseries and you look at all the stuff they have, you have no idea where to begin. That's why you need fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter about the size of your yard. They got over 6,000 plants to fit any space, and a 14-point quality checklist ensures you will get the best quality plants possible. This fall, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code BIRDS at checkout. 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code BIRDS at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use BIRDS to save today. The offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link below or in the show notes and support the show. All right, Greg, last year, Baker Mayfield really, in that second year with an offensive coordinator, it wasn't Canales, it was Liam Cohen, but that second year in that kind of system, he really took off. I believe he threw 40 or more touchdowns last year.
41, yep.
Yeah, 41. Crazy. This year, they're not lighting up the scoreboard. And what do you see on tape just in general for what they're trying to do and what's been difficult for them?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say about not lighting up the scoreboard is it's been 3 games. So, I don't know if that's a true barometer. Obviously, McMillan being out, I think, is a factor.
O-line.
Look, Baker's had to run more than ever, and he's not a runner. In other words, when I say he's not a runner, I mean he's not a guy that breaks down in the pocket prematurely. So if he's breaking down in the pocket, it's because there's legit pressure, because he's a pocket player. As Adam mentioned earlier in our conversation, he's going to stand there and throw the football. Yeah. Right. So he's not a guy looking to get out of there. So if he's running as much as he is, it's because the offensive line and the pass protection isn't what it ultimately needs to be. So I think that's been a little bit of an issue for them. I still think they have a run game that you've got to be concerned about. It's really a two-headed monster. Irving is a really good back. And Rachaad White is not a special back, but he's just one of those really solid NFL backs that's a tough runner. Was it against Houston I'm trying to remember the tape I watched because was it against Houston a few weeks ago where he was was that the Monday night game? Yes.
It was not the Jets game. It was the Houston.
Because I watched the tape obviously, but I couldn't remember which game it was. And he was really physical, running hard. They gave him the ball more in that game because of it, because he was running so hard and getting those hard yards. I think in that game he ended up with 16 or 17 carries, which is not normally the case. So they've kind of got, a nice complement because Irving's a little more explosive. And White is just a tough physical runner who, by the way, is a very good receiver as well. And now that we're talking Bucs offense, if they're down receivers, we know Evans is out. If it turns out Godwin can only play 20 snaps and we don't know the answer to that right now, but, White is a guy that you can line up all over the formation. He's not just an offset back. So, that's a possibility in this game.
Jeff, and Bucky Irving outside formation is really explosive.
Yeah, he's another guy.
He's another guy. Like, they have other ways to do it. Rashad White Bucky Irving is so much more explosive.
Well, yeah.
Rashad White is such a tough inside runner.
Yep.
I like the 1-2 combo. It's funny, when he was drafted, the knock in personnel circles was, okay, what is Bucky Irving at the next level? Is he a 2, a 3, or 1?
Well, it's because he was 192 pounds coming out of Oregon.
Right. Yeah. He was small. So you didn't really know. But, man, he's a really good football player. It sets up an interesting, Jeff, with their offensive line as we send it back to you. Mm-hmm. We kind of know what the left side will look like. It looks like they're going to be okay. But the right side, and we know Vic's pressure rate, you had that number, which we talked about on the Thursday show. Vic's pressure rate is up this season.
Yep.
Does he overload to one side? What does he do to expose that right side?
Well, we saw in week 2 that when Vic did not fear the Kansas City Chiefs receivers, the same team he didn't blitz, in the Super Bowl, he decided to come after.
Correct.
Patrick Mahomes to run and have to find guys. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Vic sent a few, was higher than his normal average pressure wise.
The other thing that's been interesting to me is I would have expected them to play a little more out of 12 personnel than they have through 3 games. They've been they're about 73% 11 personnel through 3 games. Now it's 3 games, so I don't want to say this is who they are. Right. But, Cade Otton's a solid tight end. They got really good snaps a year ago, meaningful snaps from Payne Durham, and they're just not playing it as much as I would have expected. Now, again, you guys know me. I'm not knocking the coaching staff. I'm just saying I would have expected to see a little more 12 personnel, particularly based on the wide receiver situation.
Yep.
So maybe we will. And they are on their 3rd different offensive coordinator now in 3 years. Is it Jonathan? Is it Grizzard?
Josh Grizzard.
Josh, right.
Where did he come from, Adam? Do you know?
I don't know, but you won't believe
coordinator for the was it the Dolphins? I think he's a Mike McDaniel guy, if I'm not.
He's not called. This is his first year call plays. He was actually working for an agent about 10 years ago or so.
So the one thing I would say with this is that's why I think the first 3 games, tough to say it's a barometer of who they are.
Yeah.
Just like with the Eagles, Kevin Patullo is calling plays for the first time. I think, and I've learned this, being around and talking to coaches, they're adjusting as well. Everything's an adjustment. One thing people never think about is when you have a different guy in your ear and his cadence of his voice, the way he calls plays, that's just different than what you're used to. And that takes time. Right. So there's a lot of different things that go into play here. And, and then also what's the balance between a veteran like Baker Mayfield, who I'm sure has input in the game plan because he likes certain things. He's good at certain things. So how is that relationship develop over time? You know, you can talk about that all day in training camp and in the off season, but until you're in the heat of the battle and in the game, then everything's a little different.
So Grizzard was the pass game coordinator last year for the Bucs, so he at least has sort of like Patullo that in-house, but that was his first year.
Yeah, so a lot of the concept will be the same. I'll give you an example. Did they play Atlanta week 1?
Yes.
They played Atlanta week 1, yes.
The second touchdown to Ibuka.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, okay, that won the game.
Yes.
Okay, that was really good. And I normally don't talk about play calling, but just when you watch a game and you see what a team does, that was really good play calling because they had run that concept earlier in the game and they saw how the Falcons reacted to it because Jesse Bates is an aggressive keyer. So what they did is they ran, the concept was Ibuka on a post and Evans on a dig from the same side.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew because of Jesse Bates that in a critical situation that Bates would jump Evans.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent Ibuka over the top,
right.
And and Ibuka got inside of the corner, and I don't remember if it was Terrell or not, but he got inside of the corner and they scored the winning touchdown. Those kinds of things. I notice on film. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not a play call guy. People ask me that. I don't get into that because you have to be there. But I mean, you notice how when a team sees certain things and then they build, and that stuff takes time.
To give you an idea of how fast he's moved up, this is crazy. 2 years ago, he was the offensive quality control coach for the Dolphins. Okay. Last year, as Greg said, he's a PGC, passing game coordinator. Now he's calling plays. He's only 35. He played at Yale, by the way. Played at Yale.
He must be really stupid.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Out of New Haven, right? But no, it's an amazing story, man. And look, again, it's only 3 games. So they're off to a pretty good start, considering all the issues they've had.
Look, it's like the Eagles. When things are new, all you want to do early is win the games. There's always more to coach, and there's more to get done. And I feel like I've been saying this all this week to different people. No coach, no matter how well you play, then talks to the team on Monday and says, "Guys, you guys were perfect. We have nothing to do this week."
Mm-hmm.
You can win 40-10, and that's never going to happen.
Right.
So all you want to do is win the games.
100%.
And then you keep coaching, and you keep working, and you keep trying to get better, and you keep correcting. And that's the way it works.
Yep. So one thing that'll be interesting to see with this pass rush for the Eagles that has lost Nolan Smith is how do they divvy up these reps, especially with the heat going to be. Vic usually likes to, run 2 guys out there and then just sub occasionally. Does he do that the same? Is Azeez Ojulari active for the first time this year? Does Za'DariusSmith play as many snaps as Jalix Hunt and who would be the Josh Uche? And you sort of do it like a 33% snap share, because Za'DariusSmith has played pretty well so far in his 2 outings, with the Eagles. So I would think that they would want to rely on him.
Maybe you guys know the answer.
Yeah.
Was this a lingering thing with Nolan Smith?
Well, it's the same triceps he had surgery for.
The reason I'm asking is,
did
they sign Za'Darius Smith because they knew this might be coming?
Well, he had a shoulder injury, Nolan Smith, or injury. It was bothering him. In fact, Vic came out and said by the end of camp, he was playing Nolan Smith only on the right side of the line so that keeping his right shoulder, his outside shoulder, wouldn't draw as much contact. He wasn't switching sides.
Interesting. So they probably knew something like this could happen.
I suppose so. It's fascinating that it happened to Brandon Graham, right? He tore his bicep. He came back for the Super Bowl, tore it in the Super Bowl. And now Nolan Smith tore it in the Super Bowl, had the surgery, came back, and now he is aggravated. It's not torn, I don't think, but it's aggravated.
Yes, he strained it, and it's, remember when he says shoulder, I'm sure he was talking about the triceps because it's your upper arm near your shoulder.
Right.
So it's his left. So now, but although I do believe, guys, I'm pretty certain of it. They signed Za'DariusSmith because their pass rush. It's why Vic is blitzing more, because they had 7 guys, but Jeff, as you know, it hasn't been there. So Vic's doing, Greg, as you've told us, when you can't go home with 4, you have 5.
You got to
do something else.
I learned that from Rod Rust from years and years ago.
Oh my God! Greg, tell people who that is.
Rod Rust actually started coaching in the late 1960s. He was the head coach at North Texas State. He coached Mean Joe Green at North Texas State.
Wow.
And then he worked his way into the NFL and became a defensive coordinator for a number of teams. He's the one who's considered to be the pioneer of quarters coverage. He was a head coach for 1 year in New England, didn't work out. But years and years ago, he's passed away quite a while now, but I'm going back maybe 20 years. When he retired, he called me up because he was living in Atlantic City. I didn't know the man. He called me up and he told me who he was. And of course I knew the name, this is what I do, and he said, would it be okay, if I came in every Monday and watched tape with you? And I said, of course, coach, you can come in every Monday.
I'd be honored.
Came in for about 4 or 5 years every Monday, and we sat and watched tape. And of course, I didn't get as much done as I wanted to because there were a million questions and great conversations. And I learned so much from him. And he was the D coordinator for 1 year in Pittsburgh when Rod Woodson was a Steeler. And just 1 year of Rod Woodson's career. But Rod Woodson made it a point in his Hall of Fame speech to specifically point out Rod Rust and the impact he had on him.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So I actually met him. He sat next to me. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met.
One of the nicest guys. Yeah.
He was so kind. He was giving me information that he said, take a look at that. What are your thoughts? And I was like, he's asking me this? I don't know anything. This is great.
He was it was so great having him sit here and just those kinds of things are you get a little nugget here and there. You get the big picture too, but then you get a little nugget here and there, and you just go, "Wow, that's great." Because these guys just know so much.
You're a blessed man, Greg Cosell. I mean, Ron Jaworski, Bill Walsh, Steve Spagnuolo, Rod Rust. I mean,
there's more too, but we're not going to go through that.
No, I know there's not. I know there's a lot more. All right, back to sort of strategic here, because I'm just I've been trying to brainstorm. Emeka Egbuka is off to such a good start, and he's normally playing that Z that you guys mentioned, moving around. I feel like if they tried to just make him, to your point, Greg, the static X, that invites Vic Fangio to just put Quinyon Mitchell in him and take him out if he can. But if you put other players at the X, Scotty Miller's a big guy. He's 6'2", not Scotty. Ryan Miller is 6'2", 220. Sterling Shepard can play it. And you let Egbuka still move around, I feel like that's probably a strategy that can keep Quinyon from shadowing him. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on, with Evans out. I mean, Evans, he wasn't always the X, but he was kind of the X,
right?
So, and you were right about Egbuka. He was the movement guy. And keep in mind that even, when Evans was there, they were not, relative to the rest of the NFL, a high percentage pre-snap movement team.
Right.
So, but that's something that they certainly could add more of now that they may not have a true boundary X type guy. That could be an adjustment they make. And they also know that Quinyon Mitchell has been matching guys who are the static receivers. So they may decide that, hey, let's not have a static receiver, on obviously we're not talking 100% of the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, they may decide we want more motion. We want more, reduced splits. We want more things that prevent, Quinyon Mitchell just on the outside from lining up on a guy.
Right. And Adam, clearly, this guy, Josh Grizzard, we're talking about, he will draw the red circle around Keely Ringo, who is going to start on that opposite side. So that's another reason I would want to try to get Egbuka on that side of the field.
Absolutely. And Egbuka's really strong. So I remember talking to some receivers coaches, graded them, and they just professional. I guess they interviewed him too.
Great guy. Did you see him speak at the combine? The guy was, I made it a point to, I'd heard he was a great kid. So at the combine, when he was at the podium, I listened to him.
Okay.
He sounded like a 10-year NFL pro.
I was just going to say like a senator, because I talked to two coaches that I've known for a while, and they both kind of said, man, this kid's a Hall of Fame person.
Yeah.
And look, he's not a speed guy. He's super strong, detailed, great route runner. Jeff, I mean, it'll be interesting because with Ringo expected to start, Parry Nickerson's really a nickel. He knows this game. He's been with Vic. He was with him in Miami. They don't have, we know that Eli Ricks is back. They don't have anywhere else to go here. Like if they go with more 11, which they can, like you don't have to have great backups to go 11. I mean, I remember when Brian Schottenheimer went with David Moores as 3 because he wanted to have 11 in 2020 with Seattle. You just, if you have to do it, you do it. I just want to see, because you mentioned Greg Cosell. He's a good football player.
He is.
They've always had Jeff, as you sent it back to you, so many good pass targets. He would get the ball out unless someone got hurt. Well, Evans isn't playing. I expect Otten to get the ball a bit more this game.
Yeah, he's hurt the Eagles in the past too. He's sneaky, caught some passes against them. He is a good tight end. I always felt like he was going to have an accelerated role at some point, but he always seems to have to play. Listen, they have good wide receivers. They have Godwin. They have Evans.
Yeah, well, he's sort of too the notch below. Like he's not at that level of tight end that you go, he's the top 5 guys. Right. But he's sort of the notch below. But he's a good player.
Yeah. All right. The Eagles did get a good. I guess they got I don't want to call it a break, but it looked a little sketchy with their linebacker situation earlier in the week when they were both out of practice. Baun had a brace on, but that came off by the end of the week, and looks like him and Jahad Campbell are ready to go. I expect this to be a really active game for them, Greg. I mean, it's always an active game, but we're starting to see Vic use them more on the line of scrimmage when necessary, and their athleticism is really shining through.
Yeah, Campbell was on the ball on 19 snaps this week, which was equal to the amount he was on in the first 2 games combined. Mm-hmm. So, again, was that specific to this week, or is that something we'll see more? We know that he's capable of doing that. Even Baun is, he's capable of doing that as well. Right. So it would not surprise me if you see that. both those guys. I mean, Bond is obviously a great player, and Campbell, I don't want to say he's been a surprise because he's so physically talented, but I think just the consistency with which he's playing and how he's playing has been, how quickly he's gotten to this has been a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So that is a good personnel and scheme matchup. I think we went through all the X's and O's there. Now we get to the real expertise.
Oh, boy.
Pick the game.
This is a tough one, man.
It is tough. It is. But before we do that, we're going to hear one last word from our great sponsors. Hey, Philly fans, game day is stressful enough. Parking, traffic, long lines. We've all been there. But when it comes to your cannabis, Camden Apothecary makes it easy. This is the dispensary for sports fans, just minutes outside of Philly with plenty of free parking. You'll be in and out fast, no hassle, no waiting. And they don't just care about convenience. Camden Apothecary is all about the guest experience. Their staff makes sure you feel taken care of every time you walk in. Plus, they carry only the best quality cannabis at the fairest prices. So whether you're stocking up for the tailgate, the watch party, or celebrating a big win, you know you're getting the good stuff without overpaying. They even show love to the community with specials for fans, students, service members, and healthcare pros. Camden Apothecary, top quality cannabis, great prices, and an experience made for Philly fans 21 and up. All right, I went first last week. This time, Greg, spotlight is on you. Who wins and who is the game MVP?
I've actually thought about this, and I'm having a really tough time.
Well, thanks for putting the effort in.
So much trouble down in Tampa, and normally I don't think like that about a game, but it's just one of those things that's true. They've really had a problem down there.
But Greg, they made an adjustment. They flew down on Friday to get used to that heat.
Oh, so they're going to be used to it. Yeah. So
by the way, you could have just walked outside. It's pretty hot up here in the Delaware Valley.
Yeah. So I guess now that they're down there, they probably won't sweat at all.
No,
when they play the game, they'll be used to it. Yeah. I think I'm going to pick the Eagles.
Oh,
and I think it's going to be one of those really close, intense games. I'm just feeling like A.J. Brown, that to me, he's such a factor. And, again, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to get 10 for 180. Who knows? But I just feel like, you've got to throw the ball. And I keep believing that there's a game in which they're going to come out throwing. They're going to establish Brown on the outside. And it might be 9-yard passes. Like I said, I don't know. So I'm going to pick the Eagles to win and Brown as my player of the game. But I'm going to pick it to be 2017.
Okay. Nice low-scoring game.
Okay.
Adam, I should mention, by the way, just because we like to do this, for those who get involved with this kind of thing, that the Eagles are favored by 3.5 down in Tampa. Despite their record against the Bucs, they are favored by 3.5. The total pretty low, over under 44.5. Greg went even lower than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Eagles being a favorite on the road here, where they have not played well. But look, they've got Smith and Brown and Johnson. The law firm of Smith, Brown, and Johnson this week. So, I like the Eagles to win this game 24-20. The Evans absence is massive to me.
Yeah.
Just what he does. He's unreal in the red zone. Great size. One of the best receivers in NFL history. He's going to be a Hall of Famer easily. Unbelievable how great of a football player he's been for the Bucs. And GM Jason Light, what a great pick that has been. So I like them to win 24-20. My player of the game, just because the Bucs have problems with their offensive line, because we said Jalen Carter didn't play great last week. He's going to be a home wrecker this week. He not Jordan Davis, who played well last week. Obviously, we know how he closed the game. I'm going to say Jalen Carter. I'm going to go off the board here a little bit, not pick an offensive player. Jalen Carter abuses the Bucs offensive line, and that's going to be a big difference in this game.
All right. I like it. You actually stole my thunder. I also took
a
defensive player to be player of the game.
Ringo?
Nope. No, definitely not Kelly Ringo. But I am picking the Eagles to win. I picked it 26-21.
You're always over the total.
That's not even a high score these days.
I know, but it's over the total.
It is over. It is over. The Eagles have won 19 of the last 20 games. That's pretty amazing.
Crazy.
I mean, it's almost
It really
like
is amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
And you remember how they lost? Because C.J. Gardner-Johnson got thrown out of the game.
Well, and also Jalen Hurts got hurt. I mean, it was
got hurt, right? Thank you. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So I mean, they've lost. I guess they've won 19 straight games that Jalen Hurts has started and finished. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, including the playoffs. So I'm going to pick them. I'm going to ride with them until they prove me otherwise. And I'm saying Quinyon Mitchell. I think he's going to do a shutdown job.
Okay.
Might even get a pick or two in this game.
No Evan. Yeah.
That's right. So Quinyon Mitchell is my guy. So it's a clean sweep. We all say the Eagles win. We all have different MVPs. That's going to do it for the Inside the Birds pregame show previewing this Week 4 matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Bucs. For Greg Cosell and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Catch you on the next one and enjoy your football watching.